What up, world? Established Rich coming right back at you. Let me tell you something right now. What we're looking at, what we're hearing, what we are reading is nothing short of tragic. Everything, and I mean everything, that people suspected J. Edgar Hoover's FBI and even the CIA were doing to Dr. Martin Luther King. It was true. Every tap on the phone, every lie whispered in the press, every attempt to fracture his alliances, every single thing we feared was confirmed. I want you to imagine this. You're a man, not just any man, but a man who has devoted his life to freedom, to justice, to uplifting the poorest and most forgotten amongst us. You're trying to end segregation, you're speaking out against poverty, and you're calling for peace in a time of war. And because of that, your phone is tapped, your home is watched, your friends are investigated, your reputation is attacked at the highest levels of power. Not by some shadowy former enemy, not by a rival movement, but by your own government.
Nearly 250,000 pages of records related to the surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. are now public after a controversial move from the Trump administration.
The digital document dump has been under a court-imposed seal since 1977, when the FBI first gathered the records and turned them over to the National Archives and Records Administration.
Among the documents are leads the FBI received after King's assassination. There are also details of the CIA's fixation on King's pivot to international anti-war and anti-poverty movements in the years before he was killed.
And these documents have been released despite opposition from King's two living children. They say their father's killing has been a captivating public curiosity for decades. But the pair emphasized the personal nature of the matter and urged that the files, quote, be viewed within their full historical context.
So joining us now to talk about the release is Chief Legal Analyst Conley Frodes, who also mentioned this release is going to take years to get done. But let's start here. Why do you believe the judge didn't respect the family's request? Because it's just a request. There's no legal mandate saying they have to abide by it, right?
100%. Originally, you're requesting these documents are sealed. Sealed for 2027 was the original time frame. The judge could have denied the government's request, could have respected the family's wishes. I mean, and typically a judge would lean on the family to being the closest person to the individual that was connected to these documents. And so it was an unfortunate step, I think, to something that I wasn't anticipating or expecting. Yes, I anticipated the request by the Trump administration because President Trump signed the executive order. So that's something I knew was down the road coming. But I knew they still had to go in front of a judge. And I know they still had to make a request. And you go back. Why did we seal these originally? We didn't want outrage. We didn't want, the pushback and blowback. Yeah, you want transparency, but do you want this to be released? And then the question, I guess, is why? I mean, you're talking about 6,000 documents. 230,000 pages. This is a lot of information that is being released, and it will take a long time to get out, to be fully vetted, to be fully reviewed, to ensure to see what was in there. But as the family is requesting, at least the two main family, his two children, not the niece, the Department of Justice cited, saying that she was thankful that they released it, but Bernice and his son, MLK III, they both rejected this request and did not want this to occur. So I was confused on why the judge didn't honor that. Typically with something like this, the judge would say, you know what, the family doesn't want it. I want to take that while I'm weighing the balance in an attempt to try to honor the family's wishes.
What are we expected to learn from this? I mean, are we thinking like a smoking gun? Is there a link to some government wrongdoing? What are we expecting?
I mean, the link to the government wrongdoing is clearly on his face. I mean, I think that in Trump's attempt to be transparent and his attempt to, to drain the swamp and all the statements that he made when he was running, this would go hand in hand with the transparency aspect of it. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but I know that there are folks that are saying, look, Trump is attempting to use this to take attention away from the other files that folks want to see, the Epstein files, and saying, well, here goes these files that you can look at. So that's probably a part of the process that's occurring, that, look, we want to get these out there and ensure that folks have an opportunity to see this while not asking and communicating about these other files.
And again, you mentioned this was something he ran on. He talked about the Epstein files. He talked about this, the Kennedy assassination, all of those things. Do you see any legal challenges coming out of what we learned from the documents? Because again, it's going to take some time. What might be in them? Are there any legal issues that could come up?
I mean, there are a number of legal issues, and none of them are good for the government. And well, that's why I would say part of me is happy that the Trump administration has decided to at least be transparent. But I just wish it was a holistic transparency as opposed to this, cookie cutter approach. And I'll say this was the government looking, spying on, surveilling, following, intimidating, an American citizen for no other fact, but he was attempting to help bring people together in a time when they were being, persecuted, hung during that time in the South. I mean, this is problematic on multiple levels. You're talking about following him overseas. And so if you know a little bit about history, what was happening with the Black Panthers after him, if you know about history, what was happening with Malcolm X during this exact same time, this is what the government was doing while at the same time saying, no, we're not doing these things. And so I think if it would have occurred and released during the time when it happened, then it would have been actually a cluster, an actual firebomb would have been thrown on top of an already tense moment. And so now, yeah, you can release it because it's 40 to 50 years after it occurred. But during the time when it was happening, this would have been used as gasoline to propel a movement that was looking for additional fire in his death.
Khalif, when we talk about transparency sometimes creates more trust in the government. But when you look at what the CIA was doing, and you kind of talked about it with Martin Luther King Jr., do you think that's going to create more questions as to what the government actually does in terms of spying on its own people?
100%. I mean, first of all, we have a Fourth Amendment right against legal search and seizure. And then so, yeah, you have an expectation of privacy in public place, in private places, but then they were actually violating this man's constitutional rights while trying to attempt to say that it was under the gaze of some type of national security. So we can look at those things as they occur in the past, but we can also use this as a lesson for right now, while people are pointing to national security concerns while attempting to violate constitutional rights for folks here today.
Now let me break it down for the people in the back.
J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, didn't just disagree with Dr. King, he despised him. He called him the most dangerous man in America. And he used the entire weight of the federal government, the full might of its surveillance powers, to try and break him. They tried to paint him as a communist. They tried to destroy his marriage. They sent letters trying to push him to take his own life. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. And these newly released documents prove it in black and white. And the CIA, they were not focused on whether Dr. King had broken any laws. No, their interest was in his growing global influence, his anti-war stance, his anti-poverty campaigns, the way his voice carried beyond the borders of America, threatening to unite oppressed people worldwide. That scared them. A black man from Atlanta uniting voices across continents? To them, that was dangerous. Now I want you to feel this for a moment. I've seen footage of Dr. King walking down the street and a shotgun goes off somewhere in the distance and you can literally see his body flinch, his shoulder shake, but he keeps walking. Can you imagine living like that? Knowing at any moment someone could take your life, knowing your own government is actively undermining you and still having the courage to show up? I am certain that in the final months of his life, Dr. King had to be a nervous wreck. And not because he was weak, not because he doubted his cause, but because he knew the truth. He knew the walls were closing in, but he stood tall. He ain't run, he ain't hide, he ain't stopped speaking truth to power. And here's the part that gets me. 40 years later, 50 years later, we sit here saying, oh yeah, I already knew that. Like it's nothing. Like the weight of this revelation doesn't shake the very core of what America is supposed to stand for. And I'm telling you right now, the same thing is happening today. We will be long gone before the files come out. But when they do, people will just shrug and say, oh yeah, we knew that. That should terrify you. This ain't just history. This is a warning. If the government could do this to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the most peaceful, disciplined, morally grounded leader this country has ever produced, what do you think they can do to anybody else? Dr. King faced the enemy with unlimited resources, with no accountability, and with no shame. And still he kept going. That's the kind of courage that doesn't just inspire a generation. It inspires the world. And the fact that these documents confirm every suspicion, every whisper, every nightmare shouldn't make us numb. It should make us furious. It should make us vigilant. And it should make us honor his name more than ever. Salute to Dr. King. Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.